Thanks to those of you who are joining us from all over the country. Well, before I get started, I'm just going to go really fast through this. We probably are not going to take the full hour. As I say to my clients, I would give you everything I could in 5 minutes and have you implement it in two, but it's just not possible. But I will go as quickly as I can. My style is pretty casual if this is the first time you're listening into one of my webinars. So my apologies if you hear the occasional awesome or cool or dude being dropped in there. Here's something I need from you on the webinar today. Number one is I need your participation. So if you haven't already, go ahead and type in the chat box one thing you want to get from today's webinar. The other thing I need from you is I need you to be distraction free. So you're in an environment where you can focus on the webinar as best you can. I understand many of you are not in your typical office environments today. And I need you to be all in and open-minded because you're going to get from this exactly what you put into it. So what's the challenge to creating content? Well, there's a few different things about it, and many of you have already brought that up here today. The first thing is that when you're sitting there and you're not able to get in front of people face-to-face like you normally do, it's very hard to maybe differentiate yourself from the competition. There's a lot of lawyers out there, and you know that the more time that goes by between you and talking to your network, the less and less they're going to remember you, to the point where you're worried that you might be forgotten. Or if you're just starting your practice, that you might never be known. You've got to make an impact, you've got to make an impression, and it's got to be a lasting impression. But how are you going to do that, especially with some of the things we're dealing with today? The second thing is writer's block, and several of you have mentioned that because you say, okay, great, I've blocked that time on my calendar. I have 2 hours. I'm going to go ahead and write down some content. You break out a piece of paper, you have a pen, and you're just staring at that page. You're not sure what to write. And the page doesn't magically fill itself with information. And so the longer you stare at that page, the more challenging it becomes. And as someone who's written a book, I can tell you writer's block is very real. And if you've written a blog, you've probably experienced it as well. And so the impact of that is you end up having really slow results, right? Because the writer's block creates resistance. It creates resistance to implementation. And that resistance makes it just that much harder than it should be. And so usually one of two things happens. One thing that happens is like you're sitting there and you go, oh my gosh, this is not getting me anywhere. I've got work to do, and I've got email to check, and I've got phone calls to make. And so you put it aside, never to come back to it again, right? Because you start doing the other things. The other route you might take, and this is the route I took probably the first time some time ago, is where you say, no, you know what? I'm going to push through this because this is what I need to do for my practice. And so you do. You sit down, you write something, you get it done. And then like the first time I wrote something, I remember I was looking at it going, wow, that took me 3 hours and that's really awful. Like, I don't think anyone's going to want to read that. And I certainly don't want to post it and put my name to it. And even if I do post it on my website, I don't know if anyone's going to even want to see it for days to come. So did I just waste 3 hours of my time? I hope not, but it seems that way. And if I'm going to do this, once a week, am I wasting 3 hours every week that I don't really have? Right? And so these slow results really just caused me at the time to just sort of abandon blogging. And I actually didn't blog for several years. I had to figure out a way to make it easy for me to blog and to make it easy for my clients to blog. And I'm going to share that approach with you now, because it doesn't have to be this way. So the opportunity here is that we have ideas that just flow. Super easy, and we're going to focus on a lot of this today, but super easy. Sit down and you can just fill a page with ideas. They just come out. And the more you do this, by the way, the easier it becomes to create new ideas, because there's a pattern and there's a method to doing this. It's not just scattershot. The second thing that happens is you should be able to create your your content quickly. It should just move forward as a very quick and easy process, meaning it's efficient with your time, it's efficient with your money, and it's good and it's really effective. So it puts out topics that people are interested in, that get the right results for you and have the right level of detail. The third thing that should happen is it should really enable you to stand out. So your content differentiates you from others, and your content is front and center when you're meeting with folks. And if you don't have a chance to meet with them in person, you meet with them virtually and they'll have read up on your content. And obviously the goal is that people read your articles, clients, and they actually end up calling you. Sometimes that happens, but it can be just as effective to have your referral partners consume your content, see what you're up to, and that is going to make you stand out for them when they have referrals for you. Oh, we have a latecomer. Thank you, Rick, for putting in what he wants to get out of the webinar, how to come up with new ideas in the same subject area without being repetitive. So Rick, I think we're going to cover that for you as well. So there's 3 keys to doing this. The first thing is to be intentional. And what I mean by that is know why you're doing this. Why are you committing time to blog? Or why are you committing time to create videos? Or why are you committing time to write articles on LinkedIn or for the Daily Journal? The reason that knowing why you're doing it is so important is because that's what allows you to persevere during times of resistance. Knowing your why, knowing why you're doing something, allows you to push through when things get really hard, when things get really challenging, when there's a lot to learn, or when there's money to invest. Knowing why you're doing something will help you push through all of those things. So what I'd like you all to do, I'm going to pull you in right now. What I'd like you all to do is to take a moment and just type into the chat box, why do you want to create content? So I'm just going to go and read these off. As a mediator, I want to help people reduce conflict and move on in their lives peacefully. Fantastic. You know, Alice, what I love about that is it's not necessarily for you about getting clients. It's about the purpose of what you're doing, which is fantastic. You actually jumped the question. You anticipated my next one. Mary says, drive business to my practice and be seen as an expert and leader in my practice area. Fantastic, Mary. Dominic says, get more clients. Yes, I hear you, and welcome, Dominic. Rick says, stay top of mind with referral partners and also communicate my niche. Fantastic. Tom's concerned that if the blogs are boring, the reader might tune out or turn off early. Birgit says to get new business. Beth says develop recognition as a subject matter expert. Kristen says to help others and to find a way to connect. Yeah. To communicate ideas to a larger group versus having to explain it to each individual. Yes. Yeah, because you only have so many hours in the day, right? Julie says, I want to offer something of value, something that makes a difference and also increases presence. Super. Those are great answers. So now what I'd like you to do is, given that why, if you were to do that, what would be the impact of achieving that why that you just typed in? So take that answer you just typed in and say, okay, what's the impact of that? And go ahead and type that into the chat box. The impact could be the impact to you. It could be the impact to your clients. It could be the impact to your community, to the world, anything like that. All right, responses are coming through now. Dominic says, provide for family. Yeah. Mary says, more clients being a resource of quality information to prospective and existing clients. Super. Yvette says, business sustainability and growth. Yes. Kristen, leads to more clients and referrals, builds a strong practice. Yeah. Rick says, get more and better referrals, i.e. the kind of deals I like to do. Yeah, exactly. Birgit says, during a client consultation, I can refer potential clients to my blog or newsletter articles versus having to retype that information in a follow-up email. Yeah, that's very cool. It's a lot more efficient that way. Julie says, by helping others improve their business and their lives, I'm attracting my ideal clients and I'm increasing my reputation. Fabulous. And Beth says, advocating for clients and matters I'm passionate about. Yeah. And so that second answer that you typed in, that you just typed, that is your why. That is why you're doing this. And so I want you to hang on to that as you think about creating content, because that's what's going to take you through the tough times and get you through the learning that you're going to have to do this. Okay. So being intentional, we've taken the big step there today, and you just have to remember and hang on to that as you go through the content creation process and get that really fine-tuned. Which brings up key point number 2, creating a process. So process makes things repeatable. Processes create quality and speed, and they create predictable results. You can also call it a system, either way. So for example, we can talk about systems to create topics for content, which is what we're going to get into in a moment. We can also talk about systems to then take those topics and produce finished pieces, whether they're videos or blogs or articles. And we can talk about systems to then distribute that to wherever it needs to go, whether it's to your website, to video sites, to associations that you happen to be a part of. All of that can be systematized, and I look at it as 3 specific systems: creation of topics, creation of the finished piece, and then distribution of that piece. We're not going to be able to cover all 3 today, but we are going to talk about that first component, which is a system for creating topics. And I want to share this with you because I built this for me. I call it the Content Creator, and it worked really well for me. And so I decided I would tune it and change it and tweak it for my clients. And so using this, my clients are able to generate, give or take, depending on frequency of publishing, but 3 months worth of content, and it takes them less than an hour. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show that to you right now. Just bear with me here while I do a share. So the idea behind this is that these are several different prompts that you can use to create content. So the prompts are here, and I'm going to explain each of these to you in turn. And then based on the prompts, you come up with ideas and you put them here. Okay? And so I'm going to be asking you guys to come up with specific topics. We're going to do this as an interactive exercise so that at the end of this, hopefully all of you can leave with at least 1 topic to create. So the first category of topics is frequently asked questions. And examples of that are the questions that you get most frequently from new clients. And these could be people that before they've engaged you, or people who are pretty early on in the process, but a frequently asked question that they might, that you typically get. So most of us have, 5 or 6 questions that we typically get when we're getting started, sometimes more. Each of those can be turned into a topic point. And I think this is something that Birgit brought up. You can put that out there as a piece of information, and then you can point people to it. So with that, go ahead and type into the chat box, what is 1 question you typically get? Now, don't put in the price, but apart from that, what's 1 question you typically get from a new client or a prospective client? All right, great. So we got one, do you typically represent men or women? Okay. Another one there is, what is the benefit of setting up a revocable living trust? So we've already got 2. Oh, and by the way, I might have mentioned, I should have mentioned, these boxes are small for a reason. So I'm just going to type shorthand here. And the next one here. other one here. These are great, everybody. Okay, and we can go on. Oh yeah, last one. Okay. Right there, now I know all of these don't apply to you, but right there we have 5 specific things. We can take each of those and pretty easily expand those into a blog or an article or even a short video. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to the second one, which is going to be keys to success. Keys to success is, what do clients typically do right? Or what do your clients, either their families or their businesses, things that they do right to help them be successful in the areas of law that you represent them in. So I'll just give you an example to kick this off. One example would be being an engaged client. So some clients are what I call aggressively inattentive, so they sign, they pay, and then they don't really want to do anything. They totally check out. Versus the clients that are engaged in the process, they ask good questions, they provide you the information on time. They really make themselves into good clients, and as a result of that, they get a very good result. So that's an example. So what are some of the keys to success that you see your clients have in common? Again, type that into the chat box. All right, and again, I'm going to go ahead and just type these in shorthand. So co-parenting plan. Responsive. And understand their documents. Filling out the questionnaire. Yeah. Inquiring about property tax assessments before purchase. And we'll take one more here. Understand that legal fees are an investment that produces results. Yes, love that one. Great. So that's keys to success. And again, each of those things are topics that you can expand into one piece of content. And so what we're doing here, you could certainly take these things and lump them all together and produce one big, one big article. What we're trying to do is we're trying to take one specific topic and focus on that, and then the second topic and focus on that, and then the third topic and focus on that, and so on, rather than trying to hit multiple points in a single article. That does two things. One is it keeps it short, brief, and to the point, which is more and more valuable. Shorter is actually better, I think, as Tom had mentioned. The other thing is it allows you to produce more. All right, the third one is, and this is going to be a little bit challenging to do here, but it's case studies and true stories. And so case studies are a bit formal. They're a formal way of communicating a true story. And so a case study has some components to it typically. One component to a case study is they lay out the situation. So they give an overview of what the situation is. Then they talk about what the goal was, so the goal of the engagement. Then they talk about the methodology, so what actions were taken. And then the last thing they mention are the results. So that's a 4-step formula for a case study. It's pretty formulaic and formal. Most case studies will follow that format. Overview of the situation, why you were hired, what you did, and what results you got. That's simple. A true story is a little bit different. A true story is more of a fable. So with a true story, you typically open with some sort of a situation or setting that's the same. But then after that, you actually can make it a little bit fanciful. It doesn't have to be 100% true. It could be something you've heard of. You can elaborate on it here and there. Kind of make it an interesting piece, but it needs to have a moral. So a true story is actually a fable. And a fable is a story with a moral. And the moral could be as simple as, this is why you need an estate plan, right? That's the moral of the story. Or the moral of the story, to flip it on its head and give it a little bit of a different spin. This is what happens if you don't have an estate plan. The key to this is writing these true stories, making them a little bit personal, making them realistic, making them like a short story. Could be really interesting. If story writing isn't your thing and you're like, that's just sounds too fuzzy for me, I'm not really a story writer, fine. You can go ahead and do case studies. But either way, situation, goal of engagement, methods, actions, and results, or write it as a fable. Either way, you can make really impactful points really quickly by doing it as a story. And as we've all heard time and time again, people remember stories. So it's a nice way to make yourself and make your results and make your law firm memorable. I know that was a little bit fuzzy because of the complexity of the case studies and true stories. Can't go into details here today. If you have any specific questions, though, go ahead and type those in, and I'll be happy to take those as we go through it. Okay, this next one I think probably needs very little explanation. Rulings and legislation. So, oh my gosh, right now is a wonderful time to be an attorney if you are looking to do articles, blogs, what have you, because right now there's lots of legislation coming out in many different areas of law because of COVID-19 that are impacting lots of different things. And all of those are opportunities to provide content to your readers, to create articles. And the key is to act on them really, really quickly. So when there's a ruling or a legislation, time is key. The reason it's key is because there's a bunch of law firms who have nothing but marketing people whose only purpose is to write and interpret rulings and legislation. So you got to be quick and you got to be prompt. But it's incredibly powerful. It's a wonderful way to market, because you're actually educating people on information that they've probably heard about and probably have questions about, and you're doing it for free. So it's wonderful because you're doing a service. You're also doing marketing at the same time, and I love it when we can do both of those things at once. All right, the third are opinions. And I want to distinguish this. This is not necessarily a legal opinion. Other people might call these rants. And they can very quickly and easily turn into those things. That's where you have a strong opinion about a subject or a situation or a development. And you're going to let the world know about that. These are very passionate. These are typically they have a very specific point of view. They could be polarizing depending on how much emotion you put into it. Or they could just be, contemplative and introspective and trying to, take people through your thought processes as you think through the nuances of a situation. So it can be really emotional, really supercharged, and maybe turn people off and turn people on. Or it could be something that's more contemplative and nuanced and deliberative and analytical. Either way is fine, or something in the middle that suits your style, but it's an opinion that you have on a specific situation. And oftentimes, you can have opinions on anything. It doesn't have to be opinions on the law. It could be opinions about homeschooling kids. It could be, sometimes these personal opinions really carry a lot of weight with your readership. So go ahead and type it in the chat box now, an opinion that you have about something, or for those of you that are feeling more edgy about it, something you want to rant about. And go ahead and type that in the chat box now. We're going to come up with some topics around that. I know this can be challenging for some of you because you may not want to share your opinions. You're afraid, people might not like them, but that's okay. They will appreciate them. And the right people will appreciate them. All right, here's one. Estate planning for retirement benefits is a mess and requires better legislation. Yeah, perfect. It's always nice when you write something that there isn't a lot of debate about, yet you have a lot of passion behind it. Let's see. Courts have to figure out a way to get open. Justice delayed. Yes. I love that second part, which is justice is delayed. That is key. Let's see. I'm just reading through these here. How COVID-19 will change the way we do business and interact with each other. My true rant is dump Trump. Well, there might be appetite for both of those. Let's see. Clients are sometimes penny wise, but pound foolish. Yeah. All right. Tax policy reform as a result of COVID-19. Yes. Let's see. What else is there? There's this one. Let me see if I can get this into something pithy that I can squeeze into a 1 inch by 1.5 inch box here. Okay, I'm just going to put in child support bank account. Fantastic. So lots of opinions. And again, there's lots more that you have. Believe it or not, we've been on this webinar for about a half an hour. And granted, there's a lot of us here contributing, but if you sat down yourself for 30 minutes, you could probably have pretty close to this number of topics created. Oops, sorry about that. All right, so let's go to big mistakes. So if keys to success, right, up here, are the positive things that people can do, big mistakes are the things that they don't do and then they pay for it. So big mistakes that potential clients make or that clients make. Not big mistakes that you make, but maybe big mistakes that other attorneys make, or big mistakes that that your clients or potential clients don't do, and they have to pay for it later. The classic example is, they don't have an estate plan, and then they die, and now their estate is going to probate. Things like that. So, what are some big mistakes that you see? Either a client hires you and they've already made these mistakes and you have to sort of fix them, or other attorneys might make these mistakes and you catch them, or people that don't sign up with you and they don't actually get counsel end up making these mistakes. What are examples of some of those mistakes? I was wondering how long it would take. I think that's a record. It took less than 5 seconds, and we got using LegalZoom. Yeah. And that can, you'll find that a lot of these mistakes pretty frequently end up being rants and vice versa. Clients take the big bucks for advice and then don't take the advice. Yeah. Relying on telephone advice of government tax agencies. Yeah. Let's see. Failing to plan / waiting until the deal is about to happen before getting ready for it. Yeah, no planning. Paying more money for divorce litigation. Yeah. Awesome. Well, as you can see, with this, we've managed to fill up most of this sheet of paper. And again, if you take 30 minutes to do this on your own, you'll find that it's pretty easy to fill out many of these boxes. And what you might find is that some of these categories you might have, one or two things, or maybe even nothing. But others of these categories and different styles, you're going to fill up, 6 pieces of content pretty easily with that. And so don't expect that you necessarily fill up every box, although, for someone like Jen, it's certainly possible. But even if you fill up half of it, you're going to do fine, because we've got 6 here, 3 here. That's 18 pieces of content that you can take, and you can write, you can blog, you can shoot video, you can do all of that with. Okay. All right. Let me go ahead and let's switch back to the slideshow here. All right. So that's an example of creating a process around developing topics. And the other two, again, is to create a system around actually finishing the pieces. And then the third is creating a system around distributing the content to all the different outlets that you want to send it to. Third thing to be aware of is to use a team, because for most of us, creating topics is one thing, right? We did that in a half an hour. It might take you an hour, a little bit less. But the actual writing or shooting of a video, that's a different story. And this is no offense to attorneys, but most attorneys can't write for the general public. The writing style are just simply very, very different. It's why the general public needs lawyers' help with interpreting documents. And it's why the general public has a hard time reading most attorney blogs. The other thing is lawyers have a tendency to spend too much time making things perfect. Perfect is the enemy of done, and we want to get these pieces done, and your time is valuable. So with that in mind, using a team can really take a lot of the legwork off of your plate. A lot of it depends on your audience. So if you're writing just a general blog, which is going to the masses, that's one thing. If you're writing an article for other attorneys, you might need to use an associate in your firm, or you might need to write it yourself. But you have to know your audience no matter what you're doing. If it's going to attorneys, an attorney needs to write it typically. If it's going to the general masses, oftentimes it's better to have a non-attorney actually write that information. It will generally be easier to be understood and more successful. Just as a quick aside, I recently did a podcast where I featured a family law attorney, and she was talking about her experience. And she the first blog she wrote it and she was unhappy with it. And then she hired someone to write the blogs, and she was just upset with the blogs. Like, they were terrible. The quality was crap. The legal advice was poor. She thought it was just really shallow and lame. But the performance of those blogs far exceeded the ones that she had spent hours trying to do on her own. And so now it's to the point where she just reviews it, makes sure that it's, legally correct, and then just lets them go ahead and post it, even though she's really just not happy with the content. And then the punchline is potential clients tell her that they've been reading her blogs for a long time and they love it. So you got to know your audience, and using a team, whether it's associates or whether you outsource it to a non-legal type of marketing firm or something like that, can really help. And video especially is hard to do from your office. It's easy to shoot maybe an iPhone video or something like that. But I've got teleprompters and teleprompting software and cameras and a bunch of other stuff. And it's still a real pain for me to do video if I'm not in a studio. So if you're thinking about going in on video, you may want to consider hiring a video production company to help you with that versus doing it on your own. All right, so using a team is really key. So those are the three things. I'm just gonna hit them real quick again. Number one, be intentional. Know why you are doing this. Number two, create systems, okay? We've talked about the content creator, and create a system so that you can do this easily. And the third is use a team versus doing it all on your own. So we've covered a lot today in a relatively short amount of time. Thank you all for being so engaged. And now I have a question for you. What did you get from the webinar today? And while you're typing that in, just remember you can do all of this on your own. I'm giving you all of the tools to do this on your own, or you can contact an expert to help you grow your law firm faster and easier than you could on your own. So if you're one of those people that wants to grow your law firm faster and easier than you could on your own, give me a contact. Just shoot me an email. My email's coming up, and we'll set up a time for a quick chat. All right, so some of the takeaways here, working with a team. Yeah, instead of doing it all myself. Love the content creator, thank you. Dominic says a framework. Yes, I'm a big fan of frameworks. Birgit says the idea that I need to be intentional will change the way I approach this. Love it. Yeah, it all starts there, Birgit. Tom says, I'll carve out 30 minutes every week on the same day to write a new blog, more often if I have time. Cool. Kristen, like the quick exercise to create topics. Yep. Rick says, I should think about the frequently asked questions that clients ask from their perspective rather than from my perspective. That's a great insight, Rick. Julie loves the content creator and will be using it right away. Fantastic. Beth likes the fact that this is a process. Feel free to give me an email if you have other questions. I'd be happy to answer those. Or if you want to set up a time to chat, my email address is there. All right. Have a great day and a great week ahead. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.